There's a room in Washington, D.C. where they literally make money out of thin air. Not metaphorically. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing produces about 7 billion new dollar bills every single year. And here's the uncomfortable part. The paper and ink cost about 14 cents per bill. Whether it's a $1 bill or a $100 bill, same cost, 14 cents. So why can't you do that in your basement? The answer to that question explains more about how the world actually works than 4 years of economics classes ever could. Let's start with what money actually is, because most people get this wrong from the beginning. Money isn't valuable because it's made of special paper or because old men in suits say it is. Money is valuable because of a collective agreement. It's a shared hallucination that we all participate in. You accept dollars for your work because you trust that tomorrow someone else will accept those same dollars for food. That's it. That's the entire foundation. When a government prints money, they're not creating value. They're creating a claim on value that already exists. Think of it like this. Imagine there are 10 slices of pizza and 10 pizza tickets in circulation. Each ticket is worth 1 slice. Simple. Now imagine someone prints 10 more tickets but doesn't make any more pizza. You still have 10 slices, but now you have 20 tickets. Each ticket is now worth half a slice. That's inflation, and every government on Earth knows this. So why do they keep printing? Because they can, because they have to, and because the alternative is often worse. Let's talk about what actually happens when a government decides it needs more money. And this is where it gets strange. The government doesn't just fire up the printing presses directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they do something more sophisticated and somehow more insane. The government issues bonds. These are basically IOUs, promises to pay money in the future. Then the central bank, which is technically separate from the government, but not really, buys those bonds. And how does the central bank pay for them? They create money electronically with keystrokes. They type numbers into a computer, and those numbers become real money that goes into the government's account. This process has a name, quantitative easing, which is possibly the most boring way to describe something so fundamentally absurd. The United States did this on a massive scale after the 2008 financial crisis. The Federal Reserve created about $4 trillion this way between 2008 and 2014. Then, during the pandemic, they created another $5 trillion in 2 years. That's more money than existed in the entire U.S. economy in 1990. And nothing exploded. No hyperinflation, no collapse. The dollar is still the world's reserve currency. People still trust it. So what's the catch? The catch is that this only works if you're one of a handful of countries that the world has decided to trust completely. The United States, the European Union, Japan, the UK, Switzerland, a few others. These countries have something that most governments don't have: credibility that's been built over decades or centuries. When Zimbabwe tried to print its way out of debt in the 2000s, their currency became worthless. They ended up with $100 trillion bills that couldn't buy a loaf of bread. When Venezuela did it more recently, the same thing happened. Inflation hit 1,000,000%. People started weighing cash instead of counting it because the numbers were too big. But when the US does it, the dollar barely flinches. Why? Because the world needs dollars. Oil is priced in dollars. International trade is conducted in dollars. Countries hold their reserves in dollars. When you're the currency that everyone needs, you can create more of it without immediately destroying its value. You're not just printing money, you're printing the thing that the entire global system runs on. It's a privilege. Economists call it exorbitant privilege, and it's worth trillions. But here's where the story gets tense. This privilege isn't permanent. It's based on trust, and trust is fragile. Every time the US government prints another $1 trillion, every time the debt ceiling gets raised, every time inflation ticks up another percentage point, that trust erodes a tiny bit. China knows this. Russia knows this. That's why they've been slowly moving away from dollar dependence for years, creating alternative payment systems, buying gold, trading in yuan and rubles. They're building exit routes. And the math is starting to look uncomfortable. The US national debt is currently about $34 trillion. That number has doubled in the last 10 years. The interest payments on that debt are now over $1 trillion per year. That's more than the entire defense budget, and it's growing. At some point, not today, maybe not for years, but at some point, other countries might decide the dollar isn't worth what it used to be. They might start dumping their reserves, moving to other currencies. And if that happens, if the world stops needing dollars, then America loses its money-printing superpower. Then the inflation that never came would arrive all at once. But there's something even stranger about this whole system. The reason governments can print money without immediately destroying their currency isn't just about global trust. It's about something more fundamental: economic growth. When a government prints money, and that money goes into building infrastructure, educating people, funding research, it can create more value than it destroys. The new money creates new activity, which creates new wealth, which makes the money supply expansion less destructive. You're not just dividing the same pizza into smaller slices, you're actually making more pizza. This worked brilliantly after World War II. Governments spent massively on rebuilding, on highways, on universities. That spending created the wealthiest period in human history. But it only works if the money is spent well. If the new money goes into productive things, you get growth. If it goes into asset bubbles, corruption, or just paying interest on old debt, you get stagnation with inflation. You get the worst of both worlds. And that's the tightrope that every powerful government walks right now. Print too little and your economy stagnates, growth stops, jobs disappear. Print too much and you risk inflation, currency collapse, loss of trust. Print exactly right and you can fund hospitals, roads, schools, defense, all without raising taxes or cutting programs. You can have it all. But there's no formula for exactly right, no equation that tells you the perfect amount. It's more art than science, and the people making these decisions are just people. Smart people with good data, but still just people making educated guesses about infinitely complex systems. Here's what keeps economists up at night. Every major currency in history has eventually failed. The Roman denarius, the Spanish dollar, the British pound as the global reserve, they all collapsed or faded, not because of war or invasion, because of money printing, because governments always, eventually, abuse the privilege. The average lifespan of a fiat currency, a currency not backed by gold or silver, just 92 years. The dollar went fully fiat in 1971. That was 53 years ago. The clock is ticking. Now, none of this means the dollar will collapse tomorrow. It probably won't collapse in your lifetime. The U.S. economy is still the largest in the world. The military is still the strongest. The institutions are still credible. Inertia is a powerful force. But the cracks are visible now. Inflation that was supposed to be transitory lasted years. The debt keeps growing faster than the economy. Other countries are actively building alternatives. And every time the government prints another trillion, they're borrowing from a future that has to pay it back. The 5-year-old explanation is simple. Governments can print money because we all agree to pretend it has value, and that agreement holds as long as the government doesn't print so much that the pretending becomes impossible. But the adult explanation is darker. Governments can print money because they have a monopoly on violence, because they can force you to use their currency through taxes and legal tender laws, because they can make it illegal to create competing currencies, because they control the system completely. And they will keep printing as long as they can get away with it, because the alternative, cutting spending or raising taxes enough to actually balance the budget, is political suicide. No one wants to be the leader who tells people they can't have what they were promised. So the printing continues, quietly, electronically, trillions at a time. And maybe it works forever. Maybe the system is more resilient than the cynics think. Maybe we finally figured out how to manage fiat currency without destroying it. Or maybe we're just in the middle of the longest financial experiment in human history, and we won't know if it worked until it's too late to change course. The question isn't whether governments can print money. They obviously can. They do it every day. The question is how long they can keep doing it before the collective agreement shatters. And no one knows the answer to that.